Hello, everyone, and welcome to Who We Ood, an unofficial Doctor Who watch along podcast. I am Ben, and I'm here with Cam as always. How are we doing today, Cam?
Hello. I am doing wonderful. Ready to talk about Doctor Who this evening. We are in the thick of it in terms of the Philip Hinchcliffe era. I think we're kind of at this is like halfway through season 13, so we're like halfway through his run.
Oh, yes.
So it's exciting to be halfway. Did you see that this month's Doctor Who magazine is all about the Hinchcliffe era? Did you see this?
I did not.
So like half of the magazine is this month is going to be a interview with Hinchcliffe. So I'm thinking I might pick that up. So then when we do the Hinchcliffe retrospective, I could see like what his thoughts are as of 2024.
As an American, I wish there was an easy way I could get Doctor Who magazine for not like $30 each.
They're at Barnes and Nobles.
I don't have a Barnes& and Nobles around.
Damn. Is there no digital way to get it?
I mean, I there is, but whenever possible, I'd prefer to have it physically in front of me.
I feel that.
I mean, there are like proxies, subscription things I can do, but no really easy, cheap way to get it physically regularly.
Yeah, it's one of those things that sucks about it. The fact that Doctor Who is a foreign show. So like there is still some things that just like us as Americans just have to suffer with.
If only we were born British.
Like in particular, like the Doctor Who collection box sets. It's like the British always complain. It's like, oh, I didn't get mine. Like mine's like a couple of days late in shipping. It's like we have to wait months to get them, and we don't even get the fancy packaging that they get. We get the standard Blu-ray box set.
I'd always thought it was silly that the American ones, they refer to it as like Third Doctor Season 2, Fifth Doctor Season 1, rather than just Doctor Who Season 14 or whatever.
And they're gonna screw themselves with season 4 and season 21. Don't know what they're gonna do.
Absolutely, because that doesn't make sense. I guess we'll cross that bridge when they come to it. They'll probably just do the majority is and just ignore it.
But is season 4 mixed?
Season 4, just the first two.
Yeah, so it's mostly Patrick.
Last one is season 21, and the first two is season 4
Uh,
are other doctors.
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting to know if if we even are gonna get a season 4 box set because like yeah, so much of it is missing. Because like the big thing is like we don't even have an animation for Highlanders.
Yeah. So much is still missing. Sucks. Why don't they need to give money. You just need to get it all animated. Who cares how much money it costs? It's Doctor Who. It's Disney.
Yeah, Disney, come in, animate Dalek Master Plan.
You need that Pixar animated whatever.
What's gonna get more views? Like Marvel What If season 4 or Dalek Master Plan?
Honestly, if they did it like their Marvel, like their What If animation, where it's like stylized 3D CGI, that wouldn't look terrible. I mean, I don't know if it fit 60s Doctor Who, but like it wouldn't look terrible. Look better than Web of Fear.
But like that's cheap then.
I know. We'll see.
But today, we're not talking about that one.
No, today we are talking about the Android Invasion, the fourth serial of season 13, broadcast from November 22nd to December 13th, 1975. Of course, this is Terry Nation's return to the show as a writer. I mean, I guess it hasn't been that long since Genesis, but like, first in a long time of a non-Dalek story. The first since and only other one other than the Keys of Marinus, which is one that I quite liked way back when. So doing another non-Dalek story with androids and crawls and unit, it's something.
And we also got another returning behind the scenes member. We got Barry Letts returning. Now just in a directing capacity and no longer being like a producer.
Oh yes.
Which it must have been nice for him to like to come back to this show that he once had so much control over, and now he doesn't have to worry about the minutia of it. He just has to worry about directing the actors and the crew. Must have been nice as a director standpoint to no longer have to have that producing cap on at the same time.
Yeah.
But in some ways, I would imagine he would have probably suffered from it as well. That he probably would have still had that producer mindset. That he'd been like, "Well, I can't do that because like the producing aspect of it is that means that I have to do this and that," and like would have been interesting.
Yeah. Philip Hinchcliffe and Barry Letts teaming up. So, with that in mind, what do you think of the episode, Cam?
It is kind of the most average fine episode of Doctor Who. It's watchable. I will like if you told me like in a couple of months from now, it's like, hey, do you want to pop on Android Invasion? I would probably be like, okay, yeah, I could watch a few episodes of Android Invasion. I'm down. But like, it's not gonna be one that I'm ever going to like the season 13 Blu-ray, right? Like this is the best way I think to judge a Doctor Who a classic episode. It's like, all right, when that 13 Blu-ray comes out, I'm not gonna rush to put in the Android Invasion in my Blu-ray player.
No.
It's just kind of like a story that for the most part is serviceable. There's a couple of great moments in it, and there's a couple of good things about it, but like it kind of fails in a lot of ways that a just okay episode of Doctor Who fails at. Mainly, it's the villain. The villain is not memorable, and especially like the villain's plans are kind of just like I don't think it fully makes sense.
No.
But Tom and Sarah are just so wonderful to be together that it's just kind of hard to not enjoy the story.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, they're pretty much the best part of any of these stories.
But this one in particular, especially that part one, it's just like the two of them. It really like we get a lot of time with just the two of them together. What did you think of it, Ben?
I agree with you. It's very watchable. It's good. I would watch it again. But yeah, I probably won't. It'll be a long time before I like actively seek it out. But it's decent. It's good. The villain. All right. So there are two kind of villain factions, the androids and the crawl. The androids are really interesting, the crawl less so.
Yes.
And having the crawl and their plan and the human trader Crayford, all that stuff doesn't isn't anything special, but the androids are really interesting. Which maybe we can talk about that first, where what they do in this story with the androids and making android doppelgangers of Benton and Harry, Sarah and the Doctor. It's kind of what I wanted Terror of Zygons to be, where at any given scene, you're not sure who's really them. And there's a lot of mystery and a lot of drama that arises from that. And I think that it's pretty good.
I agree. I think that like in some ways this does do that aspect of it more than Terror of the Zygons. Especially like that moment where we get like Tom and Sarah like in the same scene they see their doppelganger. Especially like that end scene in Tom. I was very impressed that they were able to do like that fight scene with the double. Like for like the amount of time that they must have had to make that scene, it actually is very believable. And they did a pretty good job with that. Also, just like seeing like Tom with a gun pointing at Tom
Yep.
Baker. It's an image that it's it must have been fun to see as a kid. And of course, Pot Two's cliffhanger is one of those cliffhangers in classic Doctor Who that is so just iconic.
It just like, what the fuck?
Like you could imagine like the kids must have like loved it.
Oh, it's not like a little Cyberman. It's like kind of a gross robot. Very like with the eyeballs sticking out.
Yeah, like the face comes off of Sarah.
Oh,
It's great.
yeah, that'll scare the kids.
I want to just also point out that like even the stuff in like the pub, like we have like the pub owner in like part two where it's just him and Tom and just like the pub owner. I thought in that scene was very much like played it very well, and I thought that like it had that air of like what is actually going on here? What are their motives?
Yes.
The best thing about this, especially early on, is the mystery of the androids and the mystery of this whole story. And it works for the most part for the first two parts, just because we're kind of learning along with the characters what this mystery is. It's just when we find out more about the mystery, it's just not engaging enough of a story to be able to carry the story without the mystery.
Yeah, those first 2 parts have such a great sense of tension and uneasiness, a kinda unreality to things. You're not sure what is going on, and it's really good in that moment. And then once we know behind the curtain, oh, yeah, it's a fake town, they're just testing things out. It just makes it kinda retroactively less interesting.
And, like, another scene I wanna point out is the scene in part 1. I no, it's at the beginning of part 2, if I remember correctly. No, what's part 1's cliffhanger?
Breaking the doctor out and there's a crawl.
So, yeah, it's part 1, where Sarah has to go in the pub with all the androids, and she has to pretend that, like, basically she's just like, "Oh, I'm Sarah. I was here, like, a year and a half ago. You remember me." And she's, like, playing along with trying to act normal, and they're just like, "You're not supposed to be here." It's just like, I have to give a shout out to that, and it adds to that mystery and uneasiness to the story of the beginning. I haven't seen the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but of course, it had to be an influence on the story of that original movie. Have you seen either the original or the remake?
No.
God, you have to watch the remake, dude. The remake's fantastic, and I've heard that the original holds up well as well.
I'll add it to the letterbox watch list. Makes me wonder though. So androids, they make like a copy of someone's memories and mind and knowledge, and you need that, which is why they have to like put Crayford under again to just get like a random testing dummy. When did they like abduct Harry and Benton and the Colonel, all of these random townfolk, copy all of them? Like, when did Harry get abducted?
But then, like that guy that's like saves the story at the end of the day that was like in the radar man. It's like, did he just never get adapted? Did they just forget about him? Was he in part 1 and 2? Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of holes in this story, especially like
Oh, yes, there
in part
is.
3 and 4, where you're kind of just scratching your head, like, is this me or is this the story? Was I just not paying attention, or is this just
Oh, like, Crayford lifting up his eye patch at the end to reveal somehow he never realized he still had 2 eyes after 2 years.
but like
He never took it off at once. Not to bathe, not when he was sleeping.
I can appreciate that though. That's a level of stupidity that like I gotta respect it in some way. That it's so dumb. Also, I was just thinking, it's like, how the fuck did they get that eye patch? Like, and like especially like think about it from like this
And
man
what's
is
the point of the crawl? Like, why did they crawls trick him into thinking he only had 1 eye? That doesn't have any impact on their plan or getting them to trust them or anything.
I was also thinking of like, all right, these people that like on the base when he comes back to Earth, like everyone on Earth would be like, "Where the fuck did you get that eye patch? Where did you get that from? We didn't send you up with that eye patch. Did you make that?"
Yeah, you've just been adrift for, like, 2 years, and you just barely managed to conserve all your resources.
Yeah.
Definitely some holes in the story, but even so, it's not bad. So what did you think of the crawl then?
Definitely one of those monsters that we talk about. It seems like a lot about classic Doctor Who, where like compared them to the Zygons. The Zygons have this straight design. You can see their full face. Like the actors can actually perform. And then you have something like this where it's just a mask. Basically, you see no lip action. You see no eyes. It's just a man wearing a mask.
It was like a Silurian level costume.
Yeah, but even it's like somewhat worse in a way because at least the Silurians are a little bit interestingly designed. This just looks like it's there's nothing to the design. It's so generic. It's so like lacks detail of anything. It's just all like the same color. It's bad, and it's so hard for me as a viewer to give them any like grasp onto anything of that villain, that monster, the species, just because it's like there's nothing to grab onto to give like an actor any type of performance.
Do you think with redesigns and rewrites, it could do well in the new series? Or do you think it's just a flawed concept?
Maybe, but I just think that like you could do I think the Zygons are such a more interestingly designed monster that you could do basically a very similar story with.
Yeah, I guess that is true.
With the Zygons, you could do a small stick story that's like when they came back in the new series, like not to spoil it too much for you, but like it's a really big world event. But like you could tell a Zygon story that they just took over this town. And then you're just like, wow, they took over this town. What that's fucked up.
Yeah.
We have to come up with a solution to like make them like leave this town because they just took over all the humans on this town. And then they're like all those humans are like in like pods or some shit like that. You could tell a very similar story that you would with a what is it? The crawl, the Krail. What is it called? The Krails. Like you could do a very similar story with the Zygons that you couldn't do with the Krails. That I don't think it would necessarily like be needed to give them a new series perspective. What about yourself?
Yeah, I don't think it would be impossible, but now that you say that, yeah, anything you could do with them, you could probably just do with the Zygons.
One thing I will have to say though is that I find it kind of disappointing that in the VHS release and the Target novelization and the DVD release, all of them have the Krail on the poster. I find that like that should be kept as like it's the part one cliffhanger is them. It should be kept as a secret, and you should go into it thinking this is an android story, and then realize it's actually the androids aren't the main villain.
Mhm.
But just to so we don't forget, like, what did you think of like the spaceman looking android design? Like, if you know what I'm talking about, the one with the helmets and the white like suit.
Oh, it's just a like, same I think it's the same kinda android, they just haven't copied someone's appearance.
Yeah.
Because when they lift it, it's just like the wires.
What do you think of them?
It's interesting, it works as, to kinda keep that mystery in the first 2 parts up as, like, "Oh, what's going on? Are those, like, government scientists or, what's going on?" It works.
I like the design of them. I think that it adds to that creepiness, like you said, and like I think there would be something missing if we didn't have like those stock androids in the story. That's just kind of especially for that part one, it really adds to it that like there's just these like men in suits going around. It would
Yeah,
be kind of it wouldn't work if they were all like if they instead they were like just military men. Having them be a little bit more mysterious looking adds to it.
yeah. Not just a empty town, but also empty town with weird scientists or guards or who knows what they are.
Yeah.
Should we talk about Unit?
Yeah, I guess they kind of are.
Harry's back. Benton's back. No Brigadier though.
Which, according to Titus Wiki, he was offered, but refused to come back. He had previous obligations, and also he was kind of pissy about the whole like Terror of the Zygons not being in season 12 and shit. So he didn't return. It would have been nice to see the Brigadier again, but like I assume as we're gonna talk about Harry and Benton, it's not like we missed out on that much.
Yeah, yeah. It's really just small parts. Like, I'm glad I saw Harry again. He didn't really do much. And also looking at the TARDIS wiki, it looks like Ian Marter wasn't like, super happy, thought it was kind of pointless. Like, why am I back unless I am going to do something? Apparently, he said he would have preferred if Harry had died saving Sarah in some way, kind of close out that character.
Been cool if like both Benton and Harry came more into the plot sooner. Like they actually helped out in like the third act.
Earlier in the story, it's the android versions of them, and later in the story, we see the real them, and then they get knocked out right away and replaced.
Yeah. It's a shame, especially since it's like again, it's like the last appearance of Benton and Harry. They could have done so much more with those characters, and especially since you have the actors there, they could have had more to do. It adds that creepiness factor to it, I guess, for the audience that you have that recognition of like, oh my god, what's going on with Harry? I know him. He shouldn't be acting this way, but like it needed to be more than just that.
John Levine's still alive, right?
Yeah, he is.
He should come back as like a high up unit guy.
That would be kinda cool, but I think he's a little bit notorious for being, like, kinda crazy. So, like, I don't think they wanna deal with Ian Levine.
Damn.
Sorry, John Levine. They definitely don't want to deal with Ian Levine.
Oh no. Gonna have to check out Wartime, though.
No, the big one that I'm sad about is that we got Brigadier in the Sarah Jane Adventures, but I wish we got Brigadier in the new series at some point before he passed away. That would have been dope.
Yeah, it's too bad. I was listening to a Big Finish companion chronicle the other day, narrated by Nicholas Courtney, and it was pretty good. He did a good job. He has a good third Doctor, or not a great, but a decent Pertwee impression. It is too bad he wasn't in the new series at all, but we'll see him eventually. Not quite, as I've spoiled myself. So what else is there to talk about?
I just want to point out also is that like I thought was interesting for the behind the scenes stuff is that a lot of that great stuff that like again that chemistry between Sarah and Tom in the story, a lot of it's they rewrote and it's just them, and you can totally buy that because they are like it's just the chemistry just works.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I saw that. They hated the script and they just rewrote and ad-libbed a lot of it, which is funny because it works really well.
Yeah, and it totally makes sense because I don't think Terry Nation's strength isn't like character and like fun chemistry between two characters talking. It's more like big ideas and like science fiction concepts.
Yeah. We just got one more Terry Nation story, right?
Kinda. Really that the next story, Destiny of the Daleks, was heavily rewritten by Douglas Adams.
Gotcha.
Also, something else I wanted to point out. I wanted to mention it. So I was watching Invasion of the Android Invasion, and I was thinking, this reminds me a lot of the Edgar Wright movie, The World's End. And I was like, how much of The World's End was influenced by this? Because I remember that Edgar Wright's mentioned something that like Doctor Who was an influence. I found a quote from Edgar Wright that said, when The World End came out, somebody said, this based off of the Tom Baker episode, The Android Invasion? And I was like, never seen that one, but then I thought, wait, I read the novelization and then I watched it. And watching Android Invasion, it was kind of like this is like watching a very low budget version of The World's End and laughs. Because World End has like the town being replaced by androids, by like this conspiracy about like this alien using these androids to replace humans. It's very much similar to the android invasion. So I just kind of like I found it interesting that he did talk about that. He did read the novelization for the story, so maybe it came in there somewhere.
Probably did. I need to rewatch that movie. That was a good movie.
It's good. I think it's the worst of the Cornetto trilogy, but that's not saying much because all three of those movies are good.
I just need to, I think, rewatch all of them because I haven't seen Shaun of the Dead.
Oh, you need to.
Hot Fuzz, I only saw when I was high from like being really sick with COVID and barely conscious. And World's End, I think I was like drunk. I gotta sit down and just watch all those movies when I'm conscious.
They're all great.
Yeah.
Very, very fun. It's always like Edgar Wright's on that list of like directors that could possibly direct a Doctor Who episode one day. Edgar Wright famously was going to direct a couple episodes of
Oh.
the first season of Doctor Who when it came back, but he had to not take it because he was doing Shaun of the Dead. And his mother said, like, that's like your biggest mistake is that you should have directed Doctor Who. But like the rumor is that he would have directed the first episode Rose. So it'd been interesting that like if Edgar Wright directed the first episode of New Who and then like following suit, like basically the show would have gone further from there. Would have been a cool moment in Doctor Who, but we never got it.
Interesting.
And there was a big rumor a couple of years ago that he was going to do the 60th anniversary special because he posted like a blue door and like everyone was saying, "Oh my god, the blue door!" Like, no, it wasn't 60th anniversary. It was season one. That like season one, there was some like behind the scenes stuff of a blue door. We all thought the blue door was connected. Like there was a big fucking conspiracy, Ben, that Edgar Wright was going to do
Uh,
Doctor Who. It was just a blue door he posted on Instagram, and people were over fucking over analyzing it, but for a couple of days, everyone was very happy that Edgar Wright was going to do a Doctor Who episode. But anyways, Android Invasion, Ben.
yeah.
It's a story. I watched it.
We watched it. We did indeed.
Remember when Tom Baker went through the window?
He did. I will say, for a doctor, sometimes I've had kind of a problem with Tom Baker's doctor where he's just a little bit too much of a pushover. Like he tries to kind of outwit, but he's not always successful. In this story, he was very like physical. He's like jumping out windows and fighting,
Running away from gunfire?
and that it was a nice change of pace.
programming an android to kill the bad guy.
Yes.
This is a great performance from Tom. I think you can see the difference between what happens when Tom Baker enjoys a director and doesn't enjoy a director from Pyramids of Mars to this. Pyramids of Mars, like, he did not smile at all in Pyramids of Mars almost. But in this story, he has basically a constant grin on him the whole story. He's having such a fun time throughout the entirety of the android invasion. Did you notice that he was having a fun time?
Yeah, I definitely thought so.
Which of course makes sense because of course Barry Letts directed it. Seems like actors really loved the way Barry Letts directed actors, so I could totally imagine that he just was having a good time.
Yeah.
And of course, Elizabeth Sladen is great when she's by herself.
Oh, yes.
There's that moment in particular where she sees the doppelganger, a fourth doctor, and sees the doppelganger, Sarah. And that moment's fantastic that she really plays it well. And even Tom plays it well as the doppelganger herself. There's something a little bit off to his performance that you can tell that it's not Tom.
Yeah. It's very subtle, but it does feel like it isn't him. He's playing a different character.
Yeah.
Sarah too. Sarah's Android Sarah. It's slightly off.
Even like part two at like the last 10-15 minutes or so when it is the android sound, like she plays it a little bit different, that it is a little bit more like there's something up with her.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's just like at the end of the day, a story that really good for the first two parts, but then like the last couple of parts is kind of whimpers out. I do think though that I enjoyed part four when it gets to Earth, when the Doctor has to fight basically the androids, and like we have all that like set piece basically. I enjoyed all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just like towards the very end is when it gets pretty much like they wrap it up very quickly, and it gets kind of dumb when, of course, like you mentioned about like the whole of eye reveal of, oh my god. At the end of part three, Ben, were you a little bit happy with the CSO making a return?
Where did it make a return?
Like they're in the rocket area, and like you can obviously see it's CSO. The whole entire time I was like, oh my god, this is a Barry Letts directed episode. He's not using his favorite tool. I'm so shocked. And then finally it showed up, and I was like, the god, Barry, you used it. I'm happy and proud of you.
Yeah, there were a lot of like outdoor scenes too, where they like put the rocket on top of the building. Even like part one, they like put like a satellite dish on top of the building. I did notice that, but yeah, sure, it's a good tool to use as long as you don't overdo it.
Which he did.
He did.
But it has its charm. CSO, there's those moments where you're like, oh, that's adorable. They tried their hardest to do that.
I want to throw out a quote that I like. Tom says, "Is that finger loaded?" I thought that was funny.
I want to spend my time to go over my favorite letterbox review for this episode.
Oh, I forgot we introduced a new segment.
This is by Rory. He says Tom Baker breaks character when he suggests going to the pub. I find it also like just shout out that like I love the doctor ordering ginger beer. That's very much like a doctor thing to do of just like there's something in particular about ginger beer that fits the fourth doctor.
Yes.
And like that scene when he's like playing dots, like it just like it's Tom in his natural habitat.
Hannah says, "My guy flew out that window." LMAO. Or maybe this one. It's only Louis says, "Very underrated. It's a good story. We even get to see Sarah Jane's face fall off."
Talking about Sarah Jane's face falling off, Ben.
Yes, the cliffhangers for this episode. The first one, Sarah tries to break the doctor out of his imprisonment and is observed by a crawl.
I think my biggest complaint with this cliffhanger is I thought the previous couple of minutes had so many better cliffhangers
I was thinking the same thing.
of just like there's moments where the doctor's being shot at, there's moments where like there was a moment with Sarah that like I think she gets kidnapped or like
She comes across like the coffin and it reaches out and it like grabs her.
yeah, I was like, oh, she's gonna strangle again. It's
And then the episode just keeps going.
it's like I thought that there was a couple of moments where you could have done a much stronger cliffhanger than what we got.
Totally agreed. Yeah. The second one is the doctor discovers that the Sarah he's with is an android, pushes it away. to the ground and its face falls off.
A great cliffhanger. It's the strongest one of the episode.
Yeah, spoiler, it's just so good.
Probably going to be up there in terms of when we do the Philip Pinchcliffe retrospective.
Oh yeah, definitely. And the third one, the crawl ship takes off. The Doctor and Sarah are pushed to the ground by the G forces.
Nothing too much to say.
Yeah.
But also, I just want to point out that this is a story that like because sometimes you do like the actual how the episode ends. This is a story that I know for a fact that Terrence Dicks really like rewrote the ending to like make it make sense for the novelization. So like he gives a whole like paragraph, like he gives like a whole like page or two that he's just like summing up like all of like basically the things that would make the ending make sense in this story.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. So Cam, how would you rate the android invasion?
I'm thinking like either the 7.7 or 7.8. Which one do I do though? I'm going to do 7.7.
Yeah, I'm gonna do the same. It's like a 7.7.
So in terms of the magazine, what did this rank in the magazine, Ben?
So pretty consistent. Most recently, it was 28, and it was also 28 in 2014 and 1998. It was only 2009. It was all the way down to 29. So basically 28 overall. So it's in like the high end of the lower third.
Which makes sense. I'm shocked that Planet of Evil is so much higher than the Androids Invasion because I think we both enjoyed Androids Invasion more than Planet of Evil,
Yeah, it's right below Santaran experiment.
which I think that like I personally would say I think Android Invasion is better. So I'm shocked of that.
I think it's better than both of those. I mean, it makes sense broadly, but I would, in comparison to those two, I think we both disagree.
But totally would agree that Revenge of the Cybermen is worse in this story.
Oh, yes, definitely. With that in mind, Cam, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you, dear listeners, so much for tuning in. Please be sure to give us a like or leave a comment. We read all of them. Subscribe or follow us on all the platforms that we are on. Twitter, Spotify, TikTok, etc. Be sure to check out all our shorts slash TikToks as well. And thank you so much again, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Good night, everyone. Peace out.